Dovi Frances, thank you so much for joining me on 20 Minute Leaders.
Thank you so much for having me.
So great to have you. I've been following for such a long time. Huge fan of what you do at Group 11, and I've been reading a lot of the things that you've been writing and the different interviews you've been doing. And I think your outlook on investments and tech in general and entrepreneurship is really fascinating. So I'd love to dive straight in there. Tell me a little bit about what motivates you. And I know this is not usually the first question that people ask you, perhaps, but I'm really curious because you seem like a person who really is driven by impact. And I want to know what impact means for you, mainly to get inspiration for myself.
Yeah, no, it's such a unique and great question to kick an interview with, and I assume that the viewers know who we are, and they're going to get some context through the verbiage that you'll connect the video to, right?
Definitely.
All right. So you're asking about what drives me. I'll tell you something. The word impact it sounds maybe a little bit too cheesy to describe what drives me. Because ultimately, I just care a lot about winning. I love winning.
I love that.
I love collaborating with other people who have a similar mindset, and they're not into becoming victims, but rather winners. People that want to define industries, or redefine industries, define categories where they operate, and
Dovi, what does it mean not to be a victim? What does that mean?
because I think you're seeing a lot of this behavior right now. In Hebrew, we call it korbanut.
Yep.
I'm not interested in anybody else dictating my life circumstances. And to the extent I can, of course, there are force majeure events. We're experiencing one right now. But to the extent I can, I would like to navigate my own ship. So that's basically it. And to the extent that I can choose the fleet of other ships that accompanies me, I'll do just that. So to your question, what drives me? Winning. I love winning, and I love collaborating with other people who have a similar mindset. And the outcome of that, by the way, because you don't win in a vacuum, right?
Right.
What is winning? There is what is the competition exactly? Well, the competition is reinventing industries, and within that, and within my kind of like narrow, habitat, which is innovation in fintech, I just love winning, and that's the true answer to your simple yet really complicated question.
Definitely. I mean, okay, so you are a walking winner with early investments in some of the most incredible hyper growth startups, Tipalti and Trip Actions, and really, uh, I mean, you have this ability to go and see different entrepreneurs and different ventures, and from the get go, be able to sort of theorize of where they could go, and you've seen this also on the Shark Tank. Tell me a little bit about this reaction that you have to entrepreneurs coming in. How can you identify who's going to be a category winner, who's going to lead disruption, and who's going to victimize themselves when we have something like COVID-19?
Yeah. By the way, I'm not sure about victimizing themselves. Just become a victim of. You can become a victim of COVID-19 circumstances as a
Right.
founder, and it doesn't mean you're not a winner. You just became a victim because so happens you didn't raise money over the past year, so you're not well capitalized to deal with this particular crisis, and nobody else is investing, and so on and so forth. So I didn't say that the fact that you lost doesn't that you lost a bet, right? That you lost an effort that you were undertaking doesn't make you a loser. I'm
Right.
talking about mindset. I'm not talking about the ultimate outcome. The ultimate outcome, for me, by the way, as an investor as well, as is the case for many of my founders, can also be negative despite your best efforts and despite having a winner mentality. It's important to remember that because there are many other factors that contribute to your success. Some of them are the market, the strength of the product, the strength of the
Right.
management team, how much money you have raised, when you have raised that amount of money, what is the M&A activity in your respective industry, if indeed you're interested in an M&A, and whether a force majeure has happened or not. And a force majeure can be the stock market collapse in 2000, can be 2007, 2009, global financial crisis, and of course can be COVID-19 and whatever else is going to happen to us over the next few decades.
Definitely. No, when I'm thinking also about the victimizing themselves, I'm not saying about the outcome, but I'm also thinking about, really now is a test of leadership, and you can see these different CEOs and founders of how they're exerting their leadership given the force majeure circumstances. You have those that are suffering but are saying, we're going to go through this, we're going to come out the other end. It's going to be tough, but we'll make it. And others are saying, you know what, this really sucks, and I don't know what to do. This just really sucks.
Yeah, none of us really knows what to do. And I think that the only answer at times of uncertainty is, do you have a fundamental belief that tomorrow will be better, right?
Yeah.
And because we invest in the future, and because many of our investments, remember, you look at statistics, right? I mean, it takes 7.9 years on average for a company to exit from the time you invest in seed all the way to the end. So I cannot judge and make significant decisions related to any of my existing investments or my desire to make new investments based on a moment in time. I consider this a moment in time. And I have to make a decision right now. How do I view the world? Do I believe that things will get better or worse? I believe things will get better. I operate in an industry where there are people that think that things will get worse, or people that don't know and are not interested in investing. I accept that. I accept that it will drive prices down for new investments, and I plan to capitalize upon that.
I love it, Dovi.
We can talk about that as well. And let me tell you one last thing. So you asked me about, you mentioned that I'm a winner. I don't consider myself a winner. I consider myself somebody who has winning mentality and is not willing to become a victim of any circumstances. And that's it. It doesn't necessarily, having that mentality doesn't necessarily make me a winner. I will lose at times. I plan on winning more than I lose, right? And that's where I'll be judged. So to your next question, you asked me a question about the type of investments that we make and how do we identify I guess, like-minded entrepreneurs, and how do we make that calculation in our head, basically, as investors, that this is going to be a category-defining company, right? I mean, that was the question?
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a seed opportunity with minimal data, minimal customers, and you have to now come up with a theory of whether this is going to be a category king.
Okay, so now I'll complicate my answer a little bit more. I think it has a lot to do with at what time you're investing, right? And in which categories you're investing, and how long have you been investing? How innocent you are, and how lucky you are, and who are you investing with? So there are lots of questions that fall into that single binary decision of yay or nay, right? I tend to invest in companies that are around seed stage. Sometimes I'll venture into investing in companies that are in their A stage. That means I've joined a little bit later. Happens, but it doesn't matter much to me as long as I believe that the company in which I've invested can become a category defining company and has at least 10x to go, right? In terms of its valuation. So I guess that the short answer is that there isn't the short answer to how we make a decision. In the early stages, I agree with you that you have less empirical data. So you have to rely on the sandbox that you kind of like set as kind of like as the guiding principles to how you invest. For example, in my case, if it's not fintech, I don't want to touch it. If it's not business to business, okay, I'm not interested in touching it. If it's not a company that is led by established entrepreneurs, I'm not likely to touch it. If we haven't seen early signs of growth, if we haven't seen contracts that kind of like give us an indication of how this company will perform over time, right, I'm not interested in touching it. If there are a shitload of other competitors in the marketplace and I don't see how this company can become a category defining company, not number 3, not number 4, number 1, the best company in the category, I'm less interested. And lastly, if it's not based in Silicon Valley with ties to Israel or without ties to Israel, I'm also less interested. These are kind of like the big parameters, right? And then within that sandbox, there are many other tangible and non-tangible things that we look at, including the strength of the management team, the energy between us and the management team when we meet in person, And yes,
Right.
I assume that I'll have to meet people in person when making an investment decision in the future, and I guess many other factors. And also, even within fintech, there are certain areas that I'm excited about. There are certain areas that I'm not as excited about. So, for example, I think neobanks are super cool, but for me to invest in a neobank, because there are 2,000 of them out there, right? I need to find a very special player that is playing this thing in a very unique way, and that's by the way why we invested. Oh shit, I'm not allowed to say, we haven't released it publicly yet.
Well, this is going to be released only in about a month.
Ah,
So,
so that's why I invested in Lilybank. I led Lilybank was formed by two co-founders, Lilak and Liran, who started Pepper Bank in Israel, which is
oh, okay. I love Pepperbank.
yeah. So they
Really
started it.
excited.
Then they left and they started Lilybank, which is a neobank for freelancers. And
Wow.
I led their $10 million seed round, and I hope
Wow.
it will be public within the next 4 weeks. Now that I know that this thing is going to be live only in a month, I'll make sure that we're preparing it in advance. Yeah. So
Dovi, that's fascinating. I have to draw a parallel. I found somewhere that you were a commander at Bad Echad or Bad 1 in the army. Is that correct? Okay, let's talk about leadership. And I'd love to hear, I went through Officers Academy in Israel. I had my share of frustrations and happy moments within that, very special school of leadership. That's what the Army considers it to be. Uh, Talk to me a little bit about your leadership style, and I'd love to hear a little bit about your experience there, as well as now helping entrepreneurs lead their companies.
it's been nobody talked to me about my Badachad experience ever in any interview. So I'm
There
happy
you go.
you're asking that question. Badachad is, as you said, is the Israel equivalent to West Point, only without getting a degree at the end of the process, right?
Right.
And I spent almost 2 years in Badachad.
Wow.
At first as a team leader, so the one rank below Tzevet, Mefaked Tzevet, team leader,
Yep.
and then as Mefaked Pluga, which is
Wow.
a company commander in the direct translation to English, and I've had literally hundreds of soldiers turning into officers, going through my program, right? And a pretty high sociometric evaluation as a staff. We're competing amongst the company commanders who's better. So Bad Echad was great. I really, some of the best years of my life I spent at the Bad, and uh, really interesting environment as well. Right, you're in the desert. And
Yep.
the base is it's like pure dark gray concrete. You know, they're like four people in the room. Anyway, it's spring beds with like so these tiny mattresses, and anyway, it was very unique experience. And I took a lot from it. Actually, that was the first time in my adult life where I felt like I can do something. I don't know how to best explain it. I was a pretty mediocre student in high school. I left high school without a diploma because
Really?
I was missing math, and
Uh,
I was missing sports.
and now
Uh,
you're an investor. I'm just gonna put it out
no, I
there.
mean, listen, don't. Who knows? But and and that was the first time in my life where I felt like, yeah, like I can do something, and people can take direction from me, and I can add value to people, and so on and so forth. So that was a very important turning point for me, Badachat. So I'm happy you asked that question, and
Definitely.
it relates to managerial style and leadership style. I think that we bring, many of us immigrants, especially those who left Israel and came to the States, bring that experience with us. I spent 4.5 years in the army, and it definitely brings a lot of grit, discipline, I guess also emotional intelligence, uh,
Yep.
to the way I look at managing my own staff, but also to the way I look at managing my relationships with my founders and my investors.
Definitely. Dovi, back to more the investment world. I'd love to hear a little bit, a few of your earned secrets over, looking at dozens of companies that have both failed and succeeded. What are some of the common pitfalls that you might see entrepreneurs making, and what are some of the more unique attributes? And this is more of a personal question to me as a young entrepreneur starting my own path. Hopefully, one day I'll be sitting next to you and pitching you my own venture. So what are some of the things that I should be looking out for?
You know, in your interview, when we prepared for this meeting, you sent one of the questions that you sent was, "What advice would you give your younger self?"
Yeah,
And I thought, on the way I drove to work today. Yes, I am working from an office. Yes, so I guess I don't really adhere to the shelter in place thing, although I'm kind of like myself here. But I drove to work today, and I was thinking about this question, and the answer I would have given my young self is not to listen to me. And I'm going to use this analogy for a second to answer this question that you've asked me. Not to listen to the adult self. I think coming into something, FOB, okay, fresh off the boat, inexperienced to an extent, and innocent. I think allows you to do things that you would have never imagined that you'll be able to do. So as I look at my career backwards, and as I'm thinking about this question that you just presented me with, the answer is that there is no secret sauce to success, right?
right.
Yes, it's easier to build a company if you have past experience building a company, and that's why I prefer to invest in entrepreneurs that are proven entrepreneurs, because they have that muscle memory, right? They've done it before. They raised money, they sold the company, they failed, they succeeded, they built a team, the whole shebang. But you're asking me about what advice I would give entrepreneurs and so on and so forth. Just be curious, be agile. Find the right partners to walk the long mile with you. We are VCs. We are, when you think about it in the pyramid, about us, where we are in the pyramid, we're somewhere between entrepreneurs and between say people who have a 9-to-5 job, right? We're in the middle. Our job is to enable entrepreneurs, right?
Sure.
And to enable entrepreneurs doesn't just mean to look at their financials and say what's wrong and what's how we can improve, but really to an extent be a mentor as well in many cases of young entrepreneurs. And that's an advice I would give to anybody I would mentor. Just believe in yourself, come innocent, be an outsider to the problem, because many times where you're an insider to the problem, actually, I stole that one, that phrase, outsider to the problem, from Warren Zev, who's my mentor. And I liked it a lot. When you are an outsider to the problem, it's easier to be innocent, and it's also easier to revolutionize or reinvent
Yes.
in the category, right?
Yes.
And that's the answer. And around that, you'll build your team, and around that, you'll bring your investors, and around that, you'll conquer your first few clients, and around that, your story will be built. So that's the long, roundabout answer to your very short and simple question.
I love it. I love it. And I had recently a chat for 20-minute leaders with Joel Peterson, chairman of the board of JetBlue Airways. And one of the things that he mentioned was that along his life, one thing that he thinks is critical for entrepreneurs who want to lead disruption is to learn how to sell and to learn how to be salespeople. And and he said it's not the most obvious answer that you would give to an entrepreneur, because selling sometimes may seem pushy or may seem not the sexiest thing to do. And you happen to break a world Guinness, if I'm not mistaken, at selling. And so tell me about this world Guinness record that you broke.
Yeah, I sold the world's largest life insurance policy. When I was running SG, which was it was a multi-family office where we managed the wealth of a few families out of Santa Barbara and Montecito. I divided the firm to a few divisions. That was before my venture capital career,
Yep.
right? One was mortgages. We did a lot of jumbo mortgages for wealthy clients. I think almost $1 billion in jumbo mortgages, so a lot. It was
Wow.
big volume coming out of that. The other part was alternative asset management. Another part was operations, where we helped high net worth families manage their estate, their yacht, their jets, etc. And the fourth vertical was life insurance, where through collaborating with a licensed insurance company, we syndicated the term and whole life insurance policies. And that's how we sold a $201 million life insurance policy.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a great deal and a very healthy commission. I got to tell you something. That experience running that firm through its various divisions helped me a lot in understanding high net worth individuals, right? And their needs, but also acknowledge that I'm not that interested in being in the services industry where you're only as good as your last deal. And that kind of like paved the way for me to get into venture capital. I was looking for something that has an upside. When you don't just earn your commission and you move on to make the next commission. I was looking for something that has longevity, and I was looking for something that has a positive net impact. I feel very, very good about where I am today, career-wise.
You have every right to be. I mean, it sounds really, really fascinating. Dovi, before I let you run to doing your incredible investments, I have to ask you the last and hardest question. I'd like to know three words that best describe you, or that any of your portfolio companies would describe Dovi Francis as.
Yeah, I don't really care how they describe me, and that's I think that's that's because
That's one of the words, I think.
yeah, no, I wouldn't say careless. I just don't care how. I think I've gotten to a point where the first word I'll use is complete. I don't really care much about what other people think anymore because it's very likely whether they like me or not that they're mistaken. Uh, so I would like to use the word complete. I would like to use the second word. I'll connect them. It's a husband and father. Being a father is a new muscle for me. Leo was.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. You'll experience it hopefully soon. And I took my sweet time. I'm 42. But that defines me today and how I look at things and what drives me. If back in the days I was winning, I was all about winning for the heck of it, for sports, let's say, or my competition against myself. Now I have somebody to win for, and somebody will benefit from it. It makes me very, very, very happy. That's the second thing. And I think the third thing is I would like to define myself is winner.
I love it. Dovi, thank you so much. This was inspiring, so enjoyable. One of the most enjoyable interviews I've had the pleasure of doing so far. And I really look forward to sitting at a table together one day and hopefully coming into some sort of a partnership.
I would love it.
Would be fun. Take care. All the best.